Hey everyone, Steve here again with you for week 9 and the pre-sell. This has been a good week, and absolutely so far this is by far one of my most favorite weeks for a couple of reasons. One of which is that this is the kind of content, and I do not exaggerate, this is the kind of stuff that I wish I had when I got started. In the lesson we talk about how the term pre-sell has been thrown around forever, but what does that exactly mean? Well, when I was getting started, I had no idea, and I cannot tell you how many hours I pulled my hair out trying to figure out the best way to make this work. There just, for whatever reason, there wasn't a model that I could tap into at the time that would have made it so easy. So, not to toot Andre and I's horns, but what you have here is really solid information to build your pre-sale and your sales funnel on, obviously because it works. It has worked for a long time, but it's a structured framework that most people don't have when they're looking for a way to start writing. When you sit down and you stare at a blank page or a blank screen, it's very hard to figure out what it is that you need to say. But when you have a framework to put it into, it becomes much easier. It's just like writing a book report. All the book reports that we did, we don't do them anymore, but when we were in school, you read the book and then you make a report about it. Well, usually there was a format that you needed to follow, which made it much simpler. And that kind of is a segue into the two topics that we need to cover before we get into the actual core of the video here, looking at a couple of pre-sales. Is that one, and it's here in front of us, that what we need to talk about, and I say we when we tell our stories, is they need to be authentic stories. They need to be true. They need to be stories that are accurate and correct. Yes, we want to embellish them. Yes, we want to use emotional words. Yes, we want to make it sound sexy, but they need to be true stories. And Anita actually mentioned in one of the previous lessons that I think it was a women-based market, that they can smell a scoundrel a mile away. I don't remember the exact word she used, but that was the basic message. That look, if you're in a market and you're not telling a true story and you're not communicating in an authentic fashion, they're going to pick up on that. And the flip side of that is, when you are telling true stories and authentic stories, that not only do they impact and persuade and affect people even more, but they're far more likely to get passed on. They're far more likely to get talked about and to be recommended because it's something unique and original. So you want to keep that in mind, and if you want to test it for yourself, sit down and try to make up a story. Sit down, forget your research, forget everything that you've done. Sit down in front of your computer and start writing a pre-sell on a completely made up story and see how hard it is. It's incredibly difficult. You'd think, well, heck, if I just make the stuff up, it'd be easier, but it's not. It's because the elements of the story that make it so real and so moving, you can't get those except through a true story. So try that. You don't have to do it, but if you want to test it out, try it out, and then take the research you've done from the story that you've got of your interview, and then write your pre-sell based on the story and the information that you've collected. And I think you'll find it's far easier. The second point to talk about, and I mentioned just a second ago, is the emotions. It's one thing just to tell a story. It's one thing to say it in a very to the point and straightforward fashion. It's another thing completely to bring the emotion into it, to bring in the thoughts and the feelings and the challenges and issues that the person's dealing with, and how they felt when they dealt with it, and how they felt when it was relieved, and the whole emotional aspect of it is really what moves the customer. And I have a perfect example of this. Is I was working with somebody recently. The guy, they're in the financial market, and he had written a sales letter for finance. They've got an incredible product. It works. I mean, it's great information. They've done a wonderful job in terms of actually delivering. But the sales letter he created and I looked at was very dry. It read like an investment prospectus, very factual, very simple and to the point. And basically what I went back and told him is, look, you have no emotion in here, you have no story, and I suggested what we tell you here: put a story and tell your story about how you struggled. What did you do to figure it out? How did it make it work? And what was the resolution that you came up with? And so he went back and reworked on it and brought it back, and having looked at it the second time, I actually sent him an email today telling him that I was excited reading it the second time. I actually wanted to sign up for a service again because it was that much better. And the factual aspect of what he changed in terms of what he was offering, the offer was still the same. The only thing that changed was the story that he put behind it and the emotional aspect of that story and impact of that story that really made the difference. And so that's just an example. I mean, it happens in every market, regardless of whether you, and that's kind of another thing to keep in mind, is don't think that you're in a market where people are unemotional. A lot of times the financial market is assumed to be an unemotional market. That's BS. Everybody's emotional. Everybody buys on emotion and rationalizes with logic. They buy because of how it makes them feel, but you give them the reasons why it's a good choice. So just keep those two things in mind: authentic stories, and make sure you keep the emotion in it as we move forward. And what I want to do now is start looking at a couple of the review pages and pre-sales that we've put together. Andre's written, actually. So let's take a look. And I said we're going to look at affiliate bully first, but let's look at the zero to hero. We talked about that yesterday, but now I'm sorry, last week in week 8. But let's look at it in context now of what we know of creating a pre-sale, in terms of what aspects and what pieces of the pre-sale process that we've told you about have been implemented and put into this actual pre-sale here. One of the first things that we see here with the zero to hero story is Andre's buddy Mark here. And of all the formats that we've given you over in week 9, let's go back and look at them for just a second. So again, we have the Evan Pagan method, we have Andre's Hollywood story method, the challenge, the struggle, the resolution, and we have the method that I also like, which is the big promise, which is a promise and a hook, the story aspect, which is the Hollywood story, which includes the solution, what's important, your offer, etc. So all of these, of all these three, I would say that the zero to hero story most closely fits the challenge, struggle, resolution, right? So let's look at it. So we have $200 per day in 30 days, right? So even though it's not in the challenge, struggle, resolution format, it's still it's a bit of a hook, but it's a big promise. You start reading this and you think, wow, can I make $200 if you're a prospect here? Can I make $200 in 30 days? Is it really real? Well, Andre sets it all up here. He's telling you it's about a friend who quit his job, packed up his family, and look at the top: a true story of a newbie who quits his job, packed up his family, and moved to a foreign country, all to pursue the internet dream. All right, so there, in and of itself, is there's a bit of hook there. It could be turned into even more of a hook if he said how a newbie quit his job, moved to a foreign country, pursued the internet dream, and ended up making $200 a day in 30 days. So it's not said necessarily up at the top, but that's what the whole hook is. Obviously, it's a newbie that's made all this money. Now, let's actually get into it. So we've got the promise, the idea of what we're looking at, what's going to be delivered. Where's the challenge aspect? Well, here's the challenge right here, is that obviously he's new, right? He has no idea. Our buddy Mark there in his red hat has no clue what he's jumped off, and he's off in the deep end now, and he has no clue what he's doing. He couldn't tell a pay-per-click ad from SEO or a banner or whatever. I mean, he had no idea. So that was a challenge. So he's got to overcome this. How's he going to overcome this? Well, obviously Andre's helped him with it, but there's also a mixture in here. There's not so much struggle that you don't really get the struggle of, oh, he tried this and he tried that and this didn't work and that didn't work. But there is a bit of struggle involved in here because obviously he's new and he hasn't figured it out and he's got to make it work. Now, the short resolution here is that he has fixed or found the way to make it work. So that's good. You think, well, that's good, he's made money. But here's what really really comes into play down here at the bottom. Andre talks about how much he made, what he did, and then down here is almost like a new challenge, struggle, resolution that he's opening up, in the sense that there's a 2011 update. Basically, what he's saying here is, look, all of this has changed. Okay, so now he's introduced a new challenge, a new struggle. All this has changed, and it's not the same that it used to be. Everything's different. You're going to have to know something more than what it took to do what Mark did. And if you want to know that, put your name and email in at the bottom, and then we'll deliver. In essence, he doesn't say it, but the rest of the story is we'll deliver the resolution to you after you've opted in. So now they enter their name and email, and then we continue, or he continues the story and how he resolved the changes in 2011 as they move forward. Okay, so I hope that makes sense, in the sense that the whole story framework's there. You've got your person, again, Mark. He had a problem. His challenge, he wanted to make money online. His challenge, he moved to a new country. He didn't know anything. So he teams up with Andre. Granted, Andre helps him out. There's a little bit of struggle in the sense that he had to figure out what was going on. He had to know what was happening. And the resolution was that he made money. And then again, the new struggle is that, well, it's all changed. Now it's not going to happen anymore, and the resolution's delivered in an email. Okay? So I hope that all makes sense. What we want to do now is take a look at Affiliate Bully and kind of evaluate the same process and see what he's done in that, and compared to what we've talked about this week. Okay, so here we are at affiliatebully.com, and before we jump in here, I've got a bit of a disclaimer. Having taught you guys the framework that we've already discussed, the challenge, the struggle, and the resolution as a simple framework, or even Eben Pagan and Frank Kern's model, whichever one you choose to use. Basically, we discussed how to use a story and use it to bring people into the process. Andre has decided on Affiliate Bully not to follow that framework at all, which I guess is his prerogative since he's been doing it long enough. But the challenge that it creates for you is it becomes a little bit harder to follow along on what's going on. So having talked with him about it, I've got some notes to share with you on his mindset and specifically what he was trying to accomplish, which will allow you to see basically how you can change things up. Since Andre's already written the playbook, he can change the plays as he chooses, I suppose. But for you, I'd suggest starting with what we've taught you, so that you can build from there. Once you get really good at it, you can change it up too and adapt it and make it your own. But just wanted to say that so you were aware of what we're looking at, because again, it doesn't fit the standard process. And one of the first things that you'll notice is that while there's a story deeper in, it's not Andre's story. And I'll show you that as we get there. But starting off in the front, you don't even see Andre's story at all. There is no issue about how he got started, his struggle, his resolution, etc. It's just completely and totally not there. So with that in mind, let's kind of dig into it. And the first thing we see here is this whole idea of Vanuatu, right? And Andre was wanting to use this. This is the hook in and of itself. Now, we talked about hooks in the training of being the kind of the grabber of a story, what's more to a story. And he's done that in a way with Vanuatu, but he's used this in and of the hook, used this as the hook itself, in the sense that a lot of people spend a lot of time and effort and time and effort and energy working jobs that they really don't like, just so they can go hang out on a place like this, right? Beautiful white sand beaches, great sunsets, water, and it's just really, really nice. And what he does, though, is he uses a bit of the reframing to let you know right off the bat. You think it takes so much money to live at a place like this, but the truth is it's $3,000 a month. So right there, it's a huge reality check, and oh my goodness, this is really even more possible and feasible than I thought it was. Okay, so that's the whole idea here on the front. Even though there's no story and no hook as we've taught it, the whole idea of Vanuatu and how cheap it is to live there, and the ability, the possibility that you could actually get there for far less money than you think so, is the hook. Okay, so once he's got their attention, the reader's attention, obviously talks about more of it here. And then we move on to page 2. And what we're doing in page 2, what he's doing in page 2 is doing one specific thing. The whole idea of page 2 is to filter out the people that that are focused on the get-rich-quick schemes, the ones that aren't interested in a long-term business. And he's done that purposely right here. So obviously he lays out, this is the quick fix, magic button method. Wrong mindset, magic bullet product, take action, make some money or not, and then start all over again, right? We've all been there. And the real way to do it is what he presents down here, which is more of a long-term business model, building leads, building customers, and interacting with them on a long-term strategy. So that's the whole purpose of page 2 here. We're filtering out those that see this and say, you know what, that sounds like too much work. I don't want to deal with that. Just give me something I can, give me that new software I can punch the button and drink margaritas on the beach. So that's the whole purpose of this page. Again, it's a bit different than what we've talked about previously in this lesson, this week's lesson, but it's also giving you a chance to see how to do things a little bit differently. So page 2 filters everything out, and then we move on to page 3. So what we've done, what's happened on page 3 here is the value delivery. This is where he starts in talking about the different ways to actually make this happen. And if you've read this pre-sale, you'll know that this is several pages long. And what he's done in here, I'm not going to go through and point out each individual piece, but if you'll look through here, there are some open loops, some implied cliffhangers, some pieces of the puzzle that we do talk about, so that he keeps the people reading. And really that's what the whole idea is as we've mentioned, the whole purpose of the pre-sale is to get those people that you really want to talk to on your list or in your lead funnel. Now, for Andre, in this case, he wants the kind of person that has read and gone through every single word of this, which is why he's designed it the way it is. So here on page 3, he gets again further into his system, the advanced framework, and then on to page 4, which talks about market research, how to choose a market, or how Chad did here, how not to choose a market, and then moving on, some of this stuff you've actually seen in tiny little businesses, and then onward down here to the bottom to somebody who's actually done really well following the same process. And then on to page 5, which is even more information. Hook, angle, and positioning. Again, you can read all this. I'm not going to go through every single piece of it here, but you get the idea is that he's delivering more content, more information, more value up front, and also still filtering. You're going to lose some people in here that still read through, that they like the idea of building a business, but they read through and they think, oh my goodness, this is just too much work. And when you think about it, we did the same thing with you guys with the tiny little business promotion. I mean, we told you up front it was going to be many months before you saw any money, and we weeded out quite a few of the people who didn't want to be there, but those of you who are still here, were the kind of customer that we wanted. So it's the same idea here. It's getting rid of the people that just don't want to do the work. Again, so that's page 5, the hook. Page 6, just glance at it here real quick, is now where we move into the story. And what he's got here is a story of Igal. And the whole purpose of Igal's story here is not really, to be a story as we discussed in the Zero to Hero, this one here, Mark's story. Mark's story, as we mentioned, was a little bit different. It follows the framework, the challenge, the struggle, and the resolution. This is a story designed more specifically to provide a bit of an aha, or to provide I can do that too, because Igal's a regular guy. He's actually from Israel. He had his challenges, and he got to work and put things together and actually made things happen, which is what Andre wanted to convey here, is that, hey, Igal's just like anybody else, or you're just like Igal. You can do it too. If he can do it, you can do it. It's not doesn't take as anything magical. It can happen if you'll put the time and effort in. And that's what the whole purpose of this page is to give a story, to actually give a story of somebody who did have success, but to also to draw the correlation or the parallel in that the person reading the pre-sale can do exactly what Igal has done. As I mentioned, Andre said he didn't want to use his story, and one of the big reasons for that, one of the reasons he didn't use it was the fact that everybody who's reading or has read this original Affiliate Bully, which if you saw it, he was promoting the paid newsletter that he had. He did not tell his story in there because pretty much everybody that received the link to this site was already on his list, already knew his story, already knew about him. Now, having talked with them, there is plans, or he is planning on rewriting this to make it more applicable to a cold market, to somebody coming in who has no idea who Andre is, no idea what he's done, and in which case, he will use his actual story in that case. So again, this is kind of a good contrast to see how you can do things a little bit differently. Now, on page 7 here, all that he's done is basically summarize and create a basic summary of what he's already told you. He's already gone through all of this basic framework, finding a market, finding a hook, etc. Going through there, a little video Gary Vaynerchuk there, and drives this whole idea home of everything he's told you in the last 5 or 6 pages. Okay, so that comes down here, and then the whole purpose here obviously is the summary, but then there's a problem here in the sense that if he left here, you've got a challenge with the reader who's read through all this and said, oh well, I agree with this, is great. I don't want a magic button. I want to build a real business. I like how you're doing it, Andre. This is wonderful. And you get down here, and if there's nothing next, then you've got somebody who's very frustrated. At this point, if they've read through all this, they agree with the idea, they like it. Now they need a way to take action on that, to make it a reality, to relieve some of the tension that's been developed in this whole process that Andre's created here. So that's what page 8 is. Page 8 is the actual offer. Now, again, as we've told you, you can make it a link to a merchant. You can make it an opt-in for yourself. In Andre's case, it was to build subscribers to his list, to his paid newsletter, and so that's what the offer here. Page 8 is simply the offer to the paid newsletter, which he discusses everything that he's doing, and then allows you down here at the bottom to sign up, I believe. There it is. So let me in. Okay, so that's it really. And again, just to summarize, it was a little bit different. It's not the exact framework that we've been teaching, but I think it's good, and I wanted to go over it with you so that you could see some of the same elements, but how you can rebuild things in and change them up once you've got the hang of this and you get really good at it. You can mix and match and really make it your own, but it still accomplishes the same objective, which is what lesson 9 is about. The pre-sell, again, as a big picture framework, is about filtering your customers, or filtering the people that read it to really get the ones that you want to talk to. And that's what the whole pre-sale process is for. Regardless of how you end up not monetizing, but how you end up putting your call to action in, whether it's a click to another, to the merchant, capturing the lead, or you're trying to sell something directly yourself. I mean, you can do that with a pre-sale as well, but the whole idea is the filtering process. So hopefully this has been helpful and enlightening, and as usual, if you have any questions, need clarification, post them in the comments below, and we'll be happy to help you. We'll talk to you next